My name is Miller Leonard. I've been practicing now for 25 years. And one of my passions, if you follow me on LinkedIn, is trying to help lawyers achieve their own independence, their own practice, their own space. Doesn't really matter if it's within their own firm or with a firm that they are currently working in. I don't think law school does a good job of teaching the ins and outs of business. Well, law school doesn't really do a good job of much of anything. And I started to realize that there's just a huge gap missing, and started talking to law students maybe 3 years ago on LinkedIn. That turned into realizing that in the gaps that we have with business development, that lawyers are really in need of resources. And I've gone through several iterations of marketing companies. Some have been good, some have not been. And then was fortunate to find Cooper. Cooper brings a lot to the table in terms of added value, in terms of how you can run your business. And also he's transparent. He offers data, which is very rare in the legal field. And the lawyers will understand this. Think about how many people contact you, want you to advertise with them or use their services. But if you ask a follow-up question, okay, well, what does $1,500 a month look like for me? What do you mean? Well, I mean, what kind of calls am I going to get? I mean, does that translate into 10 phone calls or 100? I don't know. They can't give you the answer. Well, Cooper was the first guy who would sit down with me and could say, well, what practice area are you looking at, Miller? Okay, I'm going to pull a case study from a like kind market. And as I've had a chance to think about those case studies, which has been over a number of months, so I'm slow on the uptake, it dawned on me, I don't think anybody else is being shown this. I'm not seeing this from other people. So, you know what? I don't think any of us in the legal market are getting this. I don't believe in a scarcity mindset. I'm a huge believer in passing on what works and who's honest. Cooper's all of that. He also doesn't work month to month, or he doesn't work yearly, I should say, on a yearly contract. That's huge. I know so many people, including myself, have been caught by yearly contracts. So the purpose of this, and I'm glad we're recording it, is so that somebody can see what it's like to have Cooper present a case study and walk them through what it means to look at this data. And once you look at the data and start to understand it and start to apply it to your practice area, whatever that is, and then figure in the key things, which is what's my conversion ratio on phone calls. So in my normal practice area, which is criminal defense, I can tell you my conversion rate's about 10%. Number of reasons for that, primarily because a lot of people who call don't have money. So if you think of other practice areas, it may be a lot higher. I know Andrew has got a much higher conversion rate on estates, wills, and trusts than criminal. And family is going to be somewhere in between. But this is crucial. Nobody's doing it. This kind of information is, to me, gold. And it will offer any of you who are running your own shop, wanting to expand, wanting to market, it gives you concrete data to then determine whether or not an investment is worth the risk. Every investment is a risk, but we quantify risk with data. Unfortunately, in the legal space, it seems like nobody wants to do that. It's just take a risk without any data. That's ridiculous. And Cooper and Andrew with Vertex Coaching, Emily as well, and her coaching, we're working to try and change that and try and bring things to the legal space that can help folks get systems and data and make understandable decisions in their practice space. So I'm going to turn it over to Cooper, and I hope everybody finds it as interesting as I do. I'm actually excited to listen to this again because each time I listen to it, I gain something else. I learn something else that I can apply down the road.
Yeah. And so I guess this is my first time presenting this, so it might be a little spotty. I might it's not flawless just yet, but I'll get there. And so if you have questions along the way, please stop me just as I go through. And then I've shown Miller this a little bit. He gave me a couple pointers, but I wanted to kind of go through from everything that I've seen with working with law firms and what's worked really well and make it into a presentation. So really, what works with marketing law firms? We've implemented over 300 marketing plans for law firms, and this is the main thing that works, right? Identifying a niche, becoming the topical authority, ranking for near me searches, updating and optimizing Google business profiles, creating an effective website. Now, Andrew and I this morning even were bouncing ideas off each other on how to make a website convert better. And so having people like Andrew as well help in improving your conversion rates is huge. Personalization, again, Andrew gave me an amazing resource on how to create more of a brand, right? On the brand, building a brand story. Community involvement. Miller and I talk a lot about blended marketing to where you have to, online isn't everything. I know that shocks people whenever I say as a digital marketer, but you still have to get out, go to community events, sponsor a little kids team, right? If there's a certain walk or something that you feel passionate about, get out there, get involved in the community and build your brand, and then focus pay-per-click. This is where I see most law firms spend the most money without any return on investment. And so that can be a whole presentation within itself. So I'm going to keep that pretty brief and then doubling down on what works. So different markets work better for different scenarios and strategies. So if you say, hey, the near me searches and local SEO is working very well, then double down on that. But if, like Andrew, he's figured out how to get great results on pay-per-click, double down on that. So Miller, this is the case studies that we were talking about, and I'm going to go through this more in detail here. And so this is the personal injury case study that we have for a law firm here in Kansas City. So this law firm, we've got ranked for over 75 personal injury keywords. And so kind of going through this, Wednesday, November 9th, 2022, 73 keywords. And so when we started with them, they were ranking, I think, for 13 keywords. This only grabs a couple months, behind. So they're seeing 84 calls in a month and 100 calls in a month. And so this law firm has about a 20% conversion rate, average about 20,000 a case on the low end, right? In a month, they average around $336,000, and then in 3 months, just over $1 million. And so they let me into their CRM. I get to see what the conversion rate is and what that looks like. And so this is all within the local SEO, appearing for near me searches in that regard. And so we've got a family law case study as well, ranking number 1 for 50 keywords. They get this. So this is off the 3-month period here. Let me grab this real quick. 217 calls in 3 months. Again, their conversion rate, and we're ranking them number 1 for around 50 keywords here. Pull this up. Make sure that's right. Where is that? Yeah, so around 50 keywords. They're seeing around 217 calls in a quarter, around 30% conversion rate, an average of 6,500 a case, and they're seeing around 409,000 in 3 months just from the plan we've implemented for them. And so when you're looking at this type of results, what we usually see whenever we meet with someone for the first time is like, hey, Cooper, we used digital marketing before, we didn't get anything from it, right? So this is what Miller's talking about from the data that we have, to where if you're a personal injury attorney in a city like Kansas City, or kind of the same size market, we can pull some up and say, okay, if you're family law and you kind of have the same amount of searches a month, this is what you can expect. And then we'll go through what we did for them. Does anyone have any questions on this? No. Perfect. And so how did we achieve this result. So the first thing that I see is you have to identify a niche. Now with Google, with the new update that they have, the helpful content update, they want to see topical authority, right? And so if your website and your whole online presence is spread very thin, then you're not going to be seen as an authority by Google. So when you focus on a particular area of law, you can position yourself as an expert and stand out from the competition. So whether that is a particular service or an area, identifying something that you can dominate is going to help you out a thousandfold. And that's something that we'll meet with law firms like, we can do anything. Well, you can do everything, but we can't just have, I'm going to miss someone here. We can't just market everything under the sun because your assets will be spread thin and Google doesn't like it in general. And so when you're looking at a topical authority, you want to cover the topic in great detail. So how to find the best criminal defense lawyer, when do you need to contact a criminal defense lawyer, and then having specific blog topics that cover this in detail. The more you have, the better, because Google can not say, okay, this is what they are, and recognize you for that. And so when we meet with people, we often see that they've been writing blogs, they've been writing content, but it's not formatted correctly. So this is natural language processing is how Google interprets the way humans write. So what you need to do is say, let's say, for example, if someone searches, when is the best time to contact a criminal defense lawyer after getting arrested? Your blog headline needs to be answering the question with is, right? So the best time to contact a criminal defense lawyer after getting arrested is as soon as you get released. So Google already knows, okay, you're answering the question, and then it can go through and know exactly what this article is about. And so a lot of the time we meet with lawyers, it's all about fixing the articles they already have or the content they already have, because a lot of it is not correctly set up. And with the new Google helpful content update, it's huge, especially for the near me searches. So you could say the best time to contact a Kansas City criminal defense lawyer after getting arrested is as soon as you get released, right? That's going to be the best way to rank higher for your particular keywords. Now, the next thing that is super important that I've been talking about this whole time is ranking #1 for near me searches. So typically we see law firms in the #1 spot in these near me searches receive about 10 times the traffic as even someone ranked number 10 or even ranked number 4 or 5, because they're not in that top 3 pack. So having someone that can take the time and implement the steps needed is going to be huge for you. So that's one thing that I would prioritize as a law firm owner, or if you're charged with the marketing, is getting in that top 3 in that local SEO. And so your Google business profile, this is something that we hit on a lot. And so I'm going to stop here. Does anyone have any questions so far on anything? No? Okay. Okay.
Well, actually, I do have a question, Cooper.
Yeah.
When you talk about the local pack, is it, if somebody's thinking about starting a law firm, what's the benefit of talking to somebody like you before they just go and open up?
Yeah.
I'll give an example. Like if I just I'm in Denver, and I'm coming to you and I say, hey, Cooper, I want to be in Denver. What kind of advice would you give me about where I open up?
Yeah. And so I think location is huge, and then also the name of your law firm. So if you want to, just like with your estate planning, right? Estate planning attorneys, Denver, and then also the Denver, everyone wants to go for the big cities, right? Denver, Dallas, but the smaller cities like Lakewood right outside, you might have just only 1,000 less searches, but virtually no competitors, right? And so what I can do is I can see how many searches there are and see how much competition there is in a particular market, right? So if you haven't started your law firm, like, I'm not sure what I want to do or where I want to do it, you call me and I can pull up everything in the back end and say, okay, Lakewood has this amount of searches and this is your competition. Denver has this amount of searches and then a lot more competition. So we can kind of build a game plan from the ground up to help you achieve those goals, because a lot of people just say, hey, there's a lot of people in Denver, I want to be in Denver, but there's a lot of attorneys in Denver, there's a lot of attorneys in LA, Dallas. So if you even target outside where there's not as much competition but not as much searches, it might be better, because you want to be the number one criminal defense attorney in Lakewood rather than the number 15th in Denver. Yeah, there's more searches in Denver, but you're not going to be found. Did that answer your question, Noah?
Yeah, that does. And I think that's, nobody talks about that as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
You had to teach me that, and it was a lesson that I wish I would have learned earlier. So.
Yeah, the market research is huge, especially in digital marketing, because again, people just think that it's all about SEO, year-long, it's just a lot of it is the pre-planning and making sure that you've got everything in place. So cool.
I have a question.
Yep.
So going back to the last slide, I noticed you said that the number one spot receives more than 10 times the traffic. And this is what I've been trying to figure out, because does that mean that if I just have a bunch of my colleagues and friends go and search my business, the law office a bunch, and click it a bunch, does that mean that will increase my rank?
Not necessarily. So, you have to be careful, because if they're clicking on your business, going to your site, and then immediately leaving, that's actually not a great thing for your overall SEO.
Okay.
Now, what I would do is have all those people leave you a review on your Google business profile. That would be good. And then maybe add photos and that type of stuff. But, it used to be a ranking factor, but not anymore. So
Okay.
it used to be, Google look at how many people are on your profile, how many people stay, look at photos, but now it's not a ranking factor. So
Okay, thank you.
that's a good question, though. That's a good question. And so let me pull up next slide here. So your Google business profile, this is Google's baby, right? If you're wanting to rank on the local map pack, you have to ensure your Google business profile is set up correctly. You have to make sure it's claimed. It has the correct business category. Again, I'll meet with someone and their category is just law firm. If you can narrow it down to immigration lawyer or estate planning lawyer, it's going to be huge for ranking and not having as much competition with it. Correct business information. You need to make sure this aligns with your website. So if you have a phone number, address, hours, you have to make sure everything aligns with your website, because what Google's going to do is it's going to make sure across all of the business directories, right? So there's Yelp, Better Business Bureau, Google Business Profile. The more there is alignment, the more Google's going to trust you. And so if you've got on your website a different phone number, now tracking numbers and all that good stuff, I would stick to ads for that, because if you have a different phone number on all your different things, Google is going to say, okay, this is a name, address, phone number error, and they're going to knock your ranking for it. Is it a huge ranking factor? It's around 10 to 15%, but you still want to make sure all your information is correct. Business hours, make sure you post weekly and add updates, even if it's something very simple. Post on it. If, let's say, you go to the courthouse, just take a picture of the courthouse and add it to the photos of your Google business profile. The sweet spot Google wants to see at minimum is 100 posts and 100 photos. And then once you're there, then you kind of just add weekly. But adding weekly is going to be better. Being consistent. I'd rather you add once a week than add 100 and never do it again. So add a photo once a week. Your goal is, of course, to get to 100, but keep it active and keep it, consistent. Generating and responding to reviews. This is huge, not only for ranking, but why people choose law firms. So I've ranked law firms number one that have had 5 reviews, and all of them, 2 of them were 3 stars and the rest were 1 stars. And I can get your business in front of people, but if you don't have good reviews, then I can't make them call you, right? So making sure you have good reviews, and then even on your website, having video testimonials. I think that's one of the things on my site. I've got 5 or 6 clients, video testimonials that people really like to watch and see. So big as well. Business description, ensuring you have your business name, the city you want to rank in, and your industry in there is very important. filling out the service descriptions, which I've only seen one or two out of all the law firms that I've worked with actually do this. So in the services tab, you can click the individual service and fill out a short description. Again, make sure it has your law firm name, the city you want to rank in, and the keyword it's for. And then also, recently, Google just allowed us to reinstate Google reviews that were missing. And so a lot of people say, hey, James, my client left me a review, but it's not posting. He sent me a picture of it and it's not up there. What we can do now is go back and ask for reinstatement and get those reviews back. I know that we went from like 68 reviews to 110 once I did it for ours. So a lot of the time you could be missing great reviews and they're not there. But all about Google Business Profile is keeping it active and making sure that you are, again, keeping it active. Replying to reviews, generating reviews are going to be the biggest aspect of your Google Business Profile. Does anyone have any questions about that? No? All right. Next thing, websites. I know this might look familiar to you, but your website should have 2 jobs. Now, since I'm the SEO guy, I've got a team that works for me, and I've got a website team, and we always go to battle about this, is that, okay, your job, and Andrew's laughing over there because he understands that your website's job is to do 2 things, is convert traffic into leads and rank high on Google. That's it. And so what good is a site if no one can find it? And so we'll have, rather than a estate planning attorney in Denver, Colorado, they'll try to say something snazzy and confuse Google, because all it is, it's a bot crawling your website. And if you don't have your H1 tags, H2 tags all set up to rank, then you're going to be out of luck. So converting traffic into leads and ranking high on Google. So how do you convert traffic into leads? Having personalization, having video testimonials, telling your story, and allowing them, because people don't want to work with faceless corporations anymore. They want to learn about the attorney, why you got in the business. And if you want to look at someone that has a really strong message, go check out Andrew Zimmer Law Firms. He's got a really great story insight for that. So ensure if you're getting your website built, I know they're paying to get built, but make sure if you're going to go through all that trouble, make sure that they're built correctly and rank high on Google. You have questions about that?
Yeah, I got a question since
Sure.
we're recording, and this is going to tee off on one of the posts I did on LinkedIn today.
Mhm.
Can you talk to people who are in the position of they're sitting in their office?
Yeah.
They've been working for somebody 5-7 years, whatever it is, and like, I think I can do this better. I want to start my own firm.
Yeah.
That website that you're showing of mine, I mean, that didn't happen in 1 or 2 weeks. Give people the roadmap to how long it takes to build out the website, to get the SEO in place for the ramp up, and all of the sort of behind the scene things that nobody ever sees and nobody ever talks about, but just like practice in a sport is crucial for success. Because I think too many people, and correct me if I'm wrong, too many people are going to call you and think in 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going to have this website and I'm going to be number one in these keywords, but that's not how it happens. So how do we help people plan?
I think that a lot of the time, building a site and an online presence is almost like if you compare it to working out, right? And so if you go into a gym and your personal trainer is like, I can get you ripped in a week, either they're lying or they're using bad techniques such as steroids, right? I mean, there's no way. And so for Google, with the organic and websites, I mean, we can get a good website made month and a half. A lot of the time it's getting the attorney, let's say the law firm's information, like how quick you can get back to us is a lot of the time where we're held up. But, with the timeline of, okay, set up your website, you're looking a month and a half. And then overall with your SEO, I mean, it just depends on, and just the way I'm getting this from you, it depends on the size of your market. Now, if you call me and you're like, hey, I want to rank for Denver estate planning attorney, that's a different ball game than saying, hey, I want to rank in Lakewood for estate planning attorney. So it all depends. If you're looking at a smaller market, we can do, 60 to 90 days, get you in that number one spot for, estate planning attorney or family law. Now, if you're looking at a Dallas, Denver, LA, you're looking more at like a 6 to 9 month, but that's also very conservative. But the nice thing is that once it's done and set up correctly, then you're good for it forever, right? I mean, not forever, but you're in a great spot. And so another thing is that while we're doing this, while we're increasing the SEO and getting your rankings up, we can also utilize pay-per-click so that your phone starts ringing right away. And once your ranking increases, then we can pull back that pay-per-click. So really the overall timeline depends on the market, and then also how quickly you can get back to us about website changes. But I would estimate, just to be safe, 2 months to get the site up, and then just to be safe again, 4 months to get it ranking number one. But again, we can get the phone ringing, in little as 2 weeks with Google Ads. Can I answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Again, I don't think it's something that is really.
And having someone to be honest about it too is important, right? And then since we're month to month, just because, it's not a year-long contract, we still want you to see our value. We still want to be giving you tips, tricks. We want to show our market research is helpful. We want to give you, set up your Google My Business, make sure that you can see the value. And that's why we do pay-per-click right out of the gate, because as month to month, we want to show you, if we had clients come on and leave even after 3 or 4 months, we'd go out of business, right? And so we want to show the law firm that we're putting some skin in the game as well, and we're going to perform. We're not just going to have you sign a year-long contract and we'll sit back and relax. I mean, it's one of those things where our skin's on the line as well. And so with the pay-per-click, we can get the phone ringing right away.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, Cooper.
Yeah.
Zyra here.
Hello.
Hi. Is that just to kind of follow up on the conversation, is that timeline that you gave, is that also with, let's say the attorney already has a website and has their Google business verified, kind of like the very basic things that have already been done? Like, is that timeline still with that taken consideration? Is it like something that you take over, or is it something that you start over?
Yeah, so we would just take it over. And I mean, if you've got a site already created and a Google My Business set up, I mean, it cuts a massive time frame off it. And I can look at the stuff as well in your law firm and say, hey, give you an accurate estimate, but depending on what city you're in. But yeah, it cuts the timeline probably in half if your site's already built and your Google My Business is already set up.
Thanks.
Of course, yeah. Okay. And reputation management, again, we're getting into more of the smaller things, but according to a survey, 84% of people trust online reviews just as much as personal recommendations. So the other day, my fiance and I we're building a home, and we got a personal recommendation from my uncle for this tile company. Well, I go on Google, type it up, and they've got like 44 reviews, and half of them are 1 star. And so I'm going to trust those reviews more than my uncle. And I don't know when that flip happened. But so if you've got a law firm, and just like Miller, he got a referral, and they decided to choose him based on his overall online presence, right? They got 3 people. They chose Miller because of his site, his reviews, and just his overall presence. And so you might be a referral business. Let's say we generate a third of it for you, but the rest, if people get referred to you and your site's bad or won't load, or your online reputation is just terrible, it's going to be hard to generate new customers for you. And so that's a stat that I always like to kind of hit on, because if you are a referral business or you get a good portion out of the referrals, it's still important to focus on this reputation management, because people like me will look at the reviews and say, hey, I mean, I love my uncle to death, but he might have had a one-off great experience, but over the longevity of this company, it's not been good. So reputation management, take it serious. Now, personalization, as you can see, these aren't real people, they're just stock, but I thought, hey, it looks good. But it's important. There's been a shift in, okay, I want to understand what it's going to be like to work with this law firm. You know, whenever people are looking at your site, they want to know and get a glimpse of who you are, what you stand for, and what the overall experience is going to be. And so the About Us page is the second most visited page on your website behind the homepage. And why is that? Well, because people want to get to know you and your law firm. And when they're on your About Us page, you can be vulnerable. You can tell them, okay, this is why we got into the business. This is our story. And just give them a glimpse of what it's going to be like to work with you and make a positive first impression. What are your steps? Okay, first step, what's going to happen is you're going to call. Second step, we're going to get the information. And so whenever you can make the sale first in their mind and then second in the real person, I always say the sale's made twice, first in someone's mind and then in real time, right? And so if your website can walk them along that process, it's going to make it so much easier. So don't be afraid to be open with people and have your picture on your site. I just can't imagine, there's so many law firms I work with that the owner's like, I don't want my photo on this. Well, why? And so making it personal, personalize your site. People want to do business with real people, and make sure you leave a positive first impression is going to be huge. Does anyone have questions about that? Beautiful. Now, this is one thing that people don't usually expect to hear from me is the community involvement. This is us at a ribbon cutting. We're doing work for this department. We're doing their local SEO and Google Ads. They're right over there in Brookside. Jonathan, if you Brookside come, but just Kansas City people there. So yeah, it's Brookside. We're doing there, and that's a ribbon cutting. And so getting out there and sponsoring events, I every year we sponsor an autism walk around the Kansas Speedway, right? I mean, it's like handing out, it's like a couple $100, but you meet people, you post on your social media, and you can establish a brand rather than just making your typical social media sites about Happy Father's Day, right? Having these events you go to, I mean, you can sponsor something for 200, 300, 400, all the way up to, a couple thousand, but still going out there, taking photos and showing that, hey, you're involved. Like we're sponsoring a local soccer team here, and just doing little things like that you can share on your social media and website are going to give you a one-up edge. And it's bonus points if you can find a charity organization that is filled with your target market, right? And so if you can say, if you're estate planning, can you do an Alzheimer's walk, right? Something within that regard where older or your target market, charity runs, all that good stuff. Does anyone have a question about that? So I'm kind of flying through. I want to try to keep it under an hour.
I don't have a question, but
Yeah.
just real quick, wanted to make sure you were aware. I just talked to their marketing guy yesterday. The ABA's solo practitioner section, their annual conference is going to be in Kansas City in October. So
Really?
yes,
What's
if
it called?
you're interested, the ABA, the American Bar Association, their solo practitioner annual conference. Let me know if you want me to make that connection with the marketing guy. Super
Oh, I would
nice.
love that. I would
Yep.
love that. Because we just got done. Miller invited me to the Colorado Criminal Defense Bar, and I went and spoke up there, and that was such a great time. So, I would love that.
All right, cool.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Okay. Now, Google pay-per-click, I kind of hit it on when Miller asked me like the timeline, right? But pay-per-click only works when you use extreme focus. Now, I'll have people saying, hey, Google ads don't work. Google ads don't work. Well, I've got 4 or 5 people in this meeting right now that could say, hey, they do work. Andrew, they work, So I think that whenever you look at pay-per-click, you have to set up your campaign to promote one service. So I'll have someone come on and say, hey, I used Google ads and they're criminal defense, and they promote every service, right? So drug, traffic, and their landing page, they just send them to their home page, right? And they're using broad keyword types. And so their ad just gets evaporated right away. And they're like, hey, Google ads don't work. Well, they do, but you have to set up correctly. And so that's something that if you don't have the time and you don't want to learn about it, that's somewhere you hire someone like us where we can take it, create effective landing page, set up everything correctly so that Google ads do work for you. Because once you get it down, it's basically a money printing machine. And it's one of my favorite things to do because I run it for my own company. And if it's a slow month, which we haven't had in a while, thankfully, I can just click it on and then boom, leads start coming in. But you have to make sure it's set up correctly. And another thing too, I always say is, you know, anything you do, if you don't set it up correctly, you're not going to get the right results. So your Google pay-per-click, it works. You just have to make sure you're using someone that knows what they're doing. You're not setting it up by yourself, because Google's default setting is to get you to spend the most money. Their bids, right, when you put in your keywords, it's just broad match, right? So if your keyword is law firms, you could appear for, hey, should I start a law firm, right? Because your keyword's law firm. So should I start a law firm, or how do I know if I need a business license to start a law firm? So you're paying for all these clicks. Well, these aren't targeted, these aren't your customers. And so that's where a lot of the problems arise with Google pay-per-click, is just not setting them up correctly. And so again, this could be a topic and a whole conversation and a whole presentation within itself. But if you are doing Google pay-per-click, know it works. You just have to set it up correctly. Now that's it. I wanted to keep it nice and short. Does anyone have questions about the whole presentation? I mean, I wanted to make sure that it was full of value, but not way long.
Yeah, I'm curious on Google Ads.
Yeah.
What's a reasonable budget? Assuming, you know, let me back up. I'm going to assume I'm not going to be throwing $10,000 a month on Google Ads, but what's a reasonable budget that you could say, you know, this ought to give you a good return on your investment, so that you're making more than you're investing in the Google Ads?
Yeah, and so basically what I do for your question is, I'll say, hey, Miller, how many leads do you want to generate, right? You'll say 20. What I'll do is I'll go to the Google Keyword Planner and work kind of backwards, right? I'll say, okay, to generate a good click, a good conversion, it's going to cost X amount of dollars. So then I'll come back to you and say, hey, if you want to generate 15 good leads, right, we'll have to generate 40 clicks, because most of them are going to be tire kickers and most of them might not even convert, right? And so then I'll come back to you and say, hey, this is your budget. If you want to generate this amount, this is how much you're going to bid, and this is how much you're going to cost per click and cost per conversion. And then you can kind of, so that's kind of the way I do it, rather than being like, oh, you know, spend 2,000, kind of, we'll see. I don't know. I kind of work backwards and learn what your marketplace is like, get a kind of good cost analysis, and come back to you and say, hey, this is what I would put in to generate results for Google Ads.
And so if you haven't been burned in the Google ad space, this is exactly why I recommend you.
Yeah.
Because I had a Google, this was years ago now, but I had Google Ads. The guy who was running it was fabulous. He leaves, right? Gets taken over. The account gets taken over. Suddenly nothing's working.
Yeah.
So you have the phone call. Well, nothing's working. Okay. What do I need to do? Well, you just need to spend more.
Yeah.
A couple of phone calls like that. After a couple of months, you realize, well, I'm spending more and I'm still not getting anything. Yeah. There was never the data. There was never the idea of how many leads do you want and what's your conversion ratio. Nobody ever talked to me about the price of the keywords that you were going to search in. And I suspect, I couldn't prove it, but I suspect they were just broad blasting the money that I'd spent, so that, the phone was ringing, but it was nonsense phone calls, right?
Yeah. And that, I think that's the biggest thing too, is just having someone that can kind of understand that and go through it with you. I mean, it's big to, again, generating those results, because I know whenever we first started, even your site, all your keywords were all messed up. You know, like you weren't ranking correctly, you know, so I definitely understand and get that as well. So the data is just a huge part. And we've grown so many law firms that I can say with accuracy, hey, you know, this is what you're going to expect. This is how many searches there are, and this is what you're going to get. So that's big as well. Anyone else? Okay. I think that's
I'll just add, you know, right. So I come from a different angle. I really understand a lot of what Cooper does. So when we got connected, you know, we had a heck of a cool conversation, because this was the first time I ever met a marketing person who, like Miller said, gets into the data and doesn't go for the cherry picked wins to make himself look good. He actually goes to make your firm successful. It's really different. Very few marketing companies do this. You can make anybody rank number one for a keyword that gets 11 searches a month.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's different to make somebody rank for one that's actually going to bring callers to their firm and then work on a website that converts and actually go, this went from a whole strategic plan that brought in callers, ultimately revenue, because what else are you doing this for? Saying that Cooper truly does this. The more I've got to know him over time, it's like, it's truly refreshing to see someone do this the right way, every way, and always putting that time and effort in. But, he's really the real deal. This was really cool to see this data, because that's what it comes down to. It's a funnel, right? If you guys look at the funnel game, it's the whole, how many folks do you need to get into to get a phone call? How many of the phone calls do you need to convert a lead? And it's kind of that whole thing comes together. Partner with somebody like Cooper, man, it's just a great way to build this pipeline to get folks coming in to teed up. And then once you have that math, kind of like what Miller was talking about, once you have that math and you kind of know these are what my conversion rates are, now you have a scalable system, right? If you're running SEO and you go, hey, here's the deal, for every 1,000 visitors, it turns into this much revenue. What happens if we get to 2,000 visitors? Probably going to double it, and you start looking, going, wow, this is what we can do. Or do we expand to more offices? Hey, Cooper, we're looking to pop up a second or third location. You can start to see the power of this. You go, wow, I went from doing 200K a year to 2.5 million in a year. Why? Because you start popping this in and partner with somebody like this guy.
Yeah. And so I remember whenever I first sent Miller the personal injury case study that I showed earlier, which here, I think the biggest thing too is kind of understanding, because a lot of people and a lot of marketers won't show case studies like this, where you're like, okay, this is what you can expect, and having data behind it is also big. Because I know, Andrew, whenever we first spoke, that was something you're like, no one will show their work and their back end work. And it's just like, if you don't show and can't show it, that just means you don't have anything good to show. And so I think we both agreed on that as well. So I appreciate it a bunch.
Yeah. Well, and since we're getting recorded, and one of the key things that Cooper opens up is that in the past, the idea has been, I need to go to a big market in order to make money in the law. Yeah. That has been, that's taught in law schools. What we talk about, well, you go to a big law firm, that's how you're going to make money. I'm going to give the contrarian advice. Go to a smaller market, hire somebody like Cooper, and dominate.
Yeah.
Because there's huge money in these markets. One, there are less attorneys. And you can go see that if you pull the ABA stats on attorneys in states, and then you can break it down and start to make some reasonable assumptions on where most of those attorneys are. And then second, when Cooper pulls into a market, let's say the size of Omaha or Tulsa or Oklahoma City, he looks at it and goes, oh, I can get you dominated in 2 to 3 months. And he just did that with somebody who he started working with, who left him a great review, who I think was frankly probably skeptical, right?
Yeah,
start Cooper. And then 3 months later,
I can post about it on LinkedIn, so he doesn't care if we name drop him. So yeah. I don't know if anyone knows Bart Sinyard. He's got him and his dad have a great law firm. And we were talking. He's like, dude, we've got so much competition. You're not going to be able to do anything. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, give me 3 months. And he's like, my main thing is nursing home abuse cases. And we jumped him up 16 ranks to number 3 in like 2 months. And so, again, cities like that, where kind of incognito is, not saying we can't do places like Denver, but it just takes longer. And it's just one of those things where if there's just even half amount of searches, but you're getting all the calls from the market, it's going to be a lot better than getting only 10% from a big market. So
yeah. Thanks. It's just it's a pet peeve of mine, because I think so many people like, I want to work in the big city. I want to go to New York or DC or wherever. And I see the trends going the other way, that smaller markets are losing attorneys, and that especially if you want to work for yourself or create your own thing, there's just a gigantic opportunity. And the ability to fill that niche exists if you start to understand what the data tells you.
Yeah.
And the data really does lay out, to me, a roadmap for generating constant inquiries and phone calls into your law firm.
Yeah, and then having somebody that can actually look at previous cases, hey, this is what you should expect, is also going to be helpful, because I think that they're kind of, whenever you go to a big city, you're kind of being like a rather safe than sorry, right? Like you know that there's business, right? You know that there's a lot of people, but you don't need to do that, especially with the data that I have, where I can show you, hey, no, you don't want to do that, you want to do this, and here's 5 case studies to show, is also important.
Yeah, this is awesome. I really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah.
We threw this out as an idea on LinkedIn and Lawyers on the Beach. I'm glad we recorded this. Again, the idea is to empower people, give them the information that they can start making decisions, also to show them that there's really life outside of a firm that's grinding you away at 2,000 hours a year, and you're not seeing anything for it. And it's also for the people who, if I think back in my own career, when I was wanting to leave the district attorney's office, but didn't know what to do, how I would have loved to have something like this that could have jump-started me into seeing my own potential in the way to go out and generate business, because I had no idea. And I don't think I am particularly unusual in terms of lawyers. I just don't think we understand the business of law very much. And we certainly don't understand the numbers and the data and the sales aspect of it. Yeah. And you and Andrew, you're bringing this to people in a way that it didn't really exist probably even 5 years ago.
Oh yeah.
It's been amazing, I think, what the COVID dynamic did in terms of getting people to bump out and say, I want something different. Yeah. And you're a huge change platform. I hope people can see the value in it. I certainly do, and we'll continue to tout your value. I think others like Andrew and Emily see it and they go, yeah, I get it. This and that's the thing too. I'll leave it at that. Once you get it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And even like whenever I spoke at Andrew's Vertex League, I mean, having a group of 10 to 15, Emily, I mean, even having someone that you can go to and ask questions, and having a group that you can bounce ideas off of. I mean, I feel like, and this might just be my opinion, is lawyers and don't want to ask for help, but everyone needs help every once in a while. Everyone needs an Andrew view or Emily view or my view or Miller view. I mean, because we just have different opinions, and different views and different things that we've gone through. So that's my last thing I want to hit on.
I have one more question, and then I've got to pop up. So if I'm connecting people with you, I'm telling them how amazing you are, and I want to send it away. Really quickly, remind me, do you have free consults with folks? How do people like initiate that contact? How do they get started exploring if they're not certain? Because of course I second, all the lawyers are skeptics. I love skeptical clients too. It's fun to amaze them and blow their minds. But yeah, so how can people get started with you?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is even just sending me an email. I mean, my email is just cooper@wiseguysdm.com. And then, yeah, just going through and showing, of course, free consultations, just showing, send them my book, kind of just go through, no pressure to it, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not, I'm just going to show them what's possible and what we'll do. And if it's like, hey, that makes sense in the math, okay. And if not, either they can do it themselves or hire someone else. But yeah, it's just the easiest way is even some people even just text me. And so just set up a meeting and just go from there.
Thank you, Cooper. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to this video being as a service to people. I'm glad for everybody who showed up. I hope you found value in this. It's exciting to present Cooper to the world and try and get him out there. And hope everybody has a good weekend.
Hopefully it'll get better. It was my first try there. So I hope as I go along, it will get better.
Y'all have a good day.
Thank you guys. See ya.